Chapter 24. What the world can learn from the Filipino. The Filipino people may not always appear among the richest nations in the world. Measured by statistics, the country may seem to stand behind many others in terms of income or industrial power. But numbers do not always reveal the full story of a nation. Behind the statistics lives a culture filled with quiet strengths that many modern societies are slowly forgetting. Yet Filipinos carry values that many societies are beginning to lose. In many places around the world, individual success has become the highest goal. People live independently, often far from relatives, and family ties grow weaker with time. In contrast, the Filipino way of life still revolves around family, community, and shared responsibility. They show the power of family, sacrifice, and resilience. Parents work tirelessly so their children can study. Brothers and sisters help one another during difficult times. Millions of Filipinos leave the country to work abroad, not for personal luxury, but so their families at home can have better opportunities. Behind every remittance sent home is a story of sacrifice and love. They remind the world that kindness and responsibility still matter. In Filipino communities, neighbors often help one another without expecting anything in return. During calamities, people quickly gather to support those who lost homes or livelihoods. This spirit of helping one another, often called bayanihan, shows that compassion is still alive in everyday life. Perhaps the greatest lesson is this: a nation becomes strong when its people care for one another. Wealth and technology are important, but they are not the only measures of progress. A society that protects families, respects elders, and teaches children to look after one another builds a different kind of strength, one that cannot easily be measured, but can be deeply felt. And in this quiet way, the Filipino people offer the world a simple reminder: a nation's true wealth is found not only in its economy, but in the character of its people. Chapter 25. After the last page. If you have reached this page, it means you have taken a small journey through the Filipino mind. Along the way, we saw families helping one another without contracts. We saw quiet heroes inside ordinary homes. We saw small businesses, simple habits, and stories passed from one generation to another. None of these things appear dramatic. Yet together they form the invisible structure that holds the nation together. The Filipino story is not perfect. There are many problems that still need courage, wisdom, and better leadership to solve. But beneath the noise of politics and the struggles of daily life, something stronger continues to exist. It is the spirit of people who refuse to give up on one another. The strength of the Filipino does not come from wealth alone. It comes from relationships, sacrifice, and the belief that tomorrow can still be better. If there is one lesson in these pages, perhaps it is this: a country does not become strong only because of its economy. It becomes strong when its people continue to care for one another, generation after generation. And that quiet strength, more than anything else, is what continues to shape the Filipino mind. Chapter 26. A reflection for the future. The Filipino story is still being written. The country faces many challenges: traffic, poverty, political struggles, and natural disasters. Yet the Filipino spirit continues to endure. If the nation can combine its strongest values, family unity, creativity, resilience, and faith, the future can still be bright. Progress will not come only from government plans or large corporations. It will come from millions of ordinary Filipinos who continue to work, sacrifice, and hope for a better life. The Filipino mind carries both strength and contradiction, but within it lies a powerful truth. A nation does not become great only because of its wealth. It becomes great when its people continue to care for one another, even in the hardest moments. And that is something the Filipino has always known. Perhaps that is why, as the years pass, one begins to see both a nation and a life in the same way. Not through power or success, but through the quiet impact we leave on others. Chapter 27. To the young Filipino, your turn now. Before you close this book, allow me a few final words. I do not speak to you as an expert, nor as someone who has figured everything out. I speak simply as a Filipino who has lived long enough to see how our country has grown, struggled, adjusted, and endured. And after all these years, that I find myself looking not backward, but forward, toward you. In these pages, I have tried to describe who we are. The Filipino is kind, patient, hardworking. We help one another, often without being asked. We endure difficulty with quiet strength, and we carry our burdens without much complaint. These are qualities we can be proud of. But if we are to be honest, there is another side to us. We have learned to adjust too well. We have become patient even with things that should never have been accepted in the first place. We live with traffic that steals time from our families, with floods that return as if nothing has been learned, with water shortages that should not exist in a country surrounded by water. We endure, we adapt, we move on. Somewhere along the way, we became very good at surviving, but not as good at solving. This is not written to criticize, it is written to be clear. My generation did what it could. We worked, we raised families, we tried to provide a better life. But there are problems we were not able to fix. And whether we like it or not, these are now part of what you inherit. Not as a burden, but as a responsibility. You are in a different position from us. You have access to information we never had. You can see how other countries think, build, and solve. You are more connected, more aware, and in many ways more capable. But with that comes a choice that only you can make. You can continue the habit of adjustment, accepting things as they are, finding ways around them, waiting for someone else to act. Or you can begin in your own quiet way to refuse what should not be normal. Change does not always come from grand actions. More often it begins in small, consistent decisions. A person who chooses discipline over convenience. A worker who does his job well even when no one is watching. A citizen who refuses to take part in what he knows is wrong. These may seem like small things, but they are not. They are the foundations upon which a better nation is built. You do not have to change everything at once. You do not even have to be noticed. You only need to begin where you are. Because a country is not shaped only by leaders or policies. It is shaped day by day by the kind of people its citizens choose to become. One day when you look back, you will realize that understanding who we are was only the beginning. What truly matters is what you chose to do with that understanding. If you can say, even in a small way, that you helped improve things, that you refused to accept what was wrong, that you tried to do better where you stood, then that is already something meaningful. That is already progress. That is already hope. And perhaps in time, the next generation will inherit not only our strengths, but a country that has learned at last, not just how to endure, but how to build. The rearview mirror. Now that I have reached 80 years of age, I sometimes look back at the journey of life with a different perspective. When we are young, we think success is measured by titles, promotions, and recognition. But when we reach later years, we begin to measure life differently. We remember the people we helped, the friendships we kept, and the small moments when we made life easier for someone else. Many of the things that once seemed important, titles, positions, achievements, slowly fade in significance. What remains most meaningful are the relationships we built, the kindness we shared, and the people whose lives we helped improve. When we are young, we spend much of our time looking forward, chasing goals, building careers, proving ourselves to the world. But when we grow older, we begin to understand something different. Life is not measured only by what we achieved, but by what we contributed to others. And perhaps the same is true for nations. The question is not only what kind of country we will build. The deeper question is what kind of people we are becoming. And the next chapter belongs to those who will carry its spirit forward. If this book has helped you understand the Filipino people a little better, then it has served its purpose. The Philippines is still a young nation, and its story continues to unfold. The future will depend not only on leaders and institutions, but on millions of ordinary Filipinos who continue to care for their families, help their neighbors, and hope for a better tomorrow.